My name is David. I never thought I'd be standing in a crowded courtroom, sweat sliding down my back, watching my entire life picked apart like rotten meat. The judge's gavel slammed, the echo drilling into my skull. But the thing that really froze me wasn't the sound of justice. It was the sight of my wife, Anna, smiling. Not at me, at him, Richard, my lawyer, the man I had trusted to protect me, the man I paid to fight for me, the man who had been whispering in my ear for months about strategy and timing. He leaned toward her, lips curling in a way I knew too well. That wasn't a professional smile. That was intimacy. That was betrayal staring me dead in the face. The room spun. For a moment, I wondered if I had imagined it. Maybe my paranoia had gotten the best of me. But then Anna's hand brushed Richard's under the desk. A tiny movement, 1 second at most, but it was enough to rip apart 20 years of marriage in my chest. You see, betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's just a glance, a touch, a cruel smirk while your world crumbles. And my daughter, Emily, sat right there behind me, 16 years old, trying to be brave, but I could feel her confusion bleeding through every tear she fought to hide. She didn't know who to believe, her father who raised her, or her mother who whispered poison into her ear at night. That broke me more than the affair itself. Before we go further, if this story hits close to home or you've ever felt cornered by people you trusted, take a second to support the channel. Tap subscribe, hit like, and share this with someone who needs to hear that the truth fights back. It costs nothing, and it tells the algorithm to push this story to the people who need it most. The prosecutor's voice jolted me back. Mr. David, please explain why these financial records were altered in your favor. Altered? In my favor? My throat went dry. I hadn't touched those records. But when the files flashed on the screen, I saw something horrifying. Evidence that pointed directly at me. Only one person had access to both my business accounts and my private records. Richard. In that instant, it clicked. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a setup. They weren't only trying to leave me, they were trying to bury me. Anna wanted freedom. Richard wanted money. Together, they wanted me destroyed. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. My reputation, my business, my daughter's trust, all of it dangled over a cliff. And worst of all, Anna's eyes found mine, filled not with regret, not even with hatred, but with amusement, as if watching me drown was her entertainment. The judge cleared his throat, clearly annoyed with my silence. Mr. David, are you answering the question? I forced myself to speak, even though my voice trembled. Those records are not mine. They've been tampered with. The courtroom buzzed like a hive struck with a stick. Gasps, murmurs, a few suppressed laughs. To them, I was just another desperate man caught in a lie. But deep inside, one thought burned brighter than the humiliation, hotter than the fear. I will not let them win. That's when I noticed Emily's eyes on me, wide, searching. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just my battle. It was hers too. If I lost here, I wouldn't just lose my freedom. I'd lose my daughter forever. And that was the one thing I couldn't allow. The courtroom adjourned for recess, and I stumbled out like a man crawling from a battlefield. My lawyer, no, my enemy anymore, didn't follow me. He lingered with Anna, their heads bent close together, whispering. Her hand rested on his arm, like she owned him, or maybe like they owned me. Emily walked beside me, clutching her phone like it was her only lifeline. Dad, her voice cracked, soft, torn. Why are they saying all this about you? Did you really change the accounts? Those words stabbed deeper than any knife. She wasn't accusing me. She was asking, which meant she wasn't sure, which meant Anna's poison had seeped into her veins. I crouched down so we were eye level. Emily, you know me. You know what kind of father I've been. My throat tightened. Would I ever put you in danger? Would I ever risk losing you? Her eyes darted away. She wanted to believe me, but doubt hung there, heavy. And that doubt, that was Anna's weapon. The story of Anna and me wasn't a fairy tale. We met young, married in our 20s. I was building a small business from scratch, and she was by my side in those early years. But money changes people. When the business flourished, Anna's smile grew sharper. She wanted more. Bigger house, designer clothes, friends who measured worth by brand tags and car models. I didn't mind providing. I wanted my family safe and happy. But somewhere along the way, I realized Anna wasn't just spending. She was comparing me to other men, other fortunes, other lives. Then Richard entered the picture. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was charming, smooth, the kind of man who thrives in shadows. He started handling some of my company's legal affairs, always available, always flattering Anna when I wasn't looking. At first, I thought it was harmless, until I noticed her late-night texts, the sudden business dinners, the laughter that no longer reached me. Still, I never imagined she'd go this far. Sleeping with him was betrayal enough, but framing me, turning my own daughter against me, that was war. Back in the courthouse lobby, I splashed water on my face in the restroom, staring at my reflection. My tie hung loose, my eyes bloodshot. I didn't look like a man in control. I looked like a man defeated, and that's exactly what Anna wanted the world to see. But as I stood there, a memory clawed its way back. 2 months ago, I'd found a receipt in Anna's purse, large cash withdrawal from our joint account. When I asked, she brushed it off as shopping money, but the figure was too big, way too big. Now I understood. That money wasn't for shopping. It was for Richard, for whatever trap they were setting. The pieces were starting to align. When I rejoined Emily, Anna was already there. She gave me that practiced, poisonous smile. "David, you're making this harder on yourself than it needs to be. Admit what you did. Spare Emily the humiliation." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell Emily everything right there. But I forced calm into my voice. "Anna, I won't confess to a crime I didn't commit." Richard stepped forward, his voice silky but cold. "The evidence is stacked against you, David. Jerry's don't sympathize with desperate men. If you settle now, sign over the accounts, you might still walk away with some dignity." Dignity. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. He wasn't offering me a deal. He was threatening me. Hand over everything or watch them burn me alive. I clenched my fists. For the first time, I saw it clearly. Anna wasn't driven only by greed. She was driven by fear. Fear of losing the lifestyle she had grown addicted to. Fear of living without the comfort my work had built. And Richard, he smelled that fear and turned it into opportunity. This wasn't love. This was survival. And knowing that gave me strength, because I could use their fear against them. The second half of the hearing began, and I walked into that courtroom with a different fire burning inside me. Anna and Richard expected me to look broken, to stagger under the weight of their accusations. Instead, I straightened my tie, squared my shoulders, and made sure Emily saw me, saw her father refusing to crumble. Richard stood with his usual smug composure. "Your Honor, the defendant has a long history of manipulating company funds. We have bank records, transactions unaccounted for, and eyewitness testimony." I almost laughed. Eyewitness testimony? He was pulling every trick in the book. And then I realized someone close to me had betrayed me further. The bailiff called the next witness. My stomach sank when Peter, my old business partner, walked in. Peter had been with me from the beginning. He knew every sleepless night, every struggle to get the company off the ground. And now he sat there, looking uncomfortable but ready to testify against me. "Mr. Peter," Richard began smoothly, "isn't it true that David once mentioned diverting funds to a private account?" Peter hesitated. His eyes flicked to me, then back to Richard. "Yes, he mentioned it." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. I shot to my feet. "That's a lie!" The judge banged the gavel. "Order in the court."
But it was too late. The seed of doubt had been planted. Emily's face went pale. She folded her arms tightly, as if holding herself together. Anna leaned toward her, whispering. I could almost hear the venom. See, your father is not who you think he is. My mind raced. Peter, why? Why would he side with them? And then it clicked. That cash withdrawal. Anna had bought him, just like she bought Richard. But desperation breeds mistakes. I noticed something others didn't. Peter avoided Anna's gaze. He wasn't proud. He was scared. That fear gave me an opening. When it was my turn to cross-examine, I walked slowly toward him. Peter, I said softly, like talking to an old friend, do you remember the day we signed the first client? The rain was pouring, and you said you'd never forget that moment because it proved our dream could survive anything. He shifted in his chair. Yes. Did I ever take a cent from you, Peter? He bit his lip. No. Did I ever keep you from your share? Did I ever leave you unpaid, unrecognized? His voice was barely audible. No. Then why, Peter? My voice cracked, part anguish, part accusation.
Why stand here and let them use you to destroy me? The room was silent. Richard jumped in. Objection, Your Honor. The witness doesn't need to answer emotional manipulation. But the judge gestured for Peter to respond. Peter's face crumbled. He rubbed his temples, then whispered, Because they threatened me. They said if I didn't testify, they'd expose something from my past, something that could ruin me. A shockwave hit the room. Even the judge leaned forward. What past, Mr. Peter? Peter stammered. Years ago, before the company, I had tax problems, nothing major, but they found out. They promised to bury it if I testified. I turned, staring straight at Richard. The mask slipped for just a second, his jaw tightening. He hadn't expected Peter to break. Your Honor, I said firmly, this so-called testimony is coerced, extorted, and that's the real crime in this courtroom. The judge frowned, scribbling notes. For the first time, the momentum shifted. Emily's eyes widened. She looked at Anna now, not at me, with suspicion. Mom, did you know about this? Anna froze. Just for a heartbeat, but Emily saw it. She saw the truth starting to seep through the cracks. That was the first crack in Anna's armor. As recess was called again, Richard stormed past me, muttering under his breath. You think you're clever, David. This isn't over. You'll regret making him talk. But inside, I knew the war was far from over, but the battlefield had changed. For the first time, I wasn't just defending myself. I was striking back, and I had more weapons than they realized. The next day in court, the atmosphere was different, tighter. Everyone knew the case had shifted. The judge's frown lingered on Anna and Richard longer than before, and that subtle shift was fuel for me. But villains rarely give up so easily, and I knew they were planning their counterstrike. Richard strutted back to his seat with a new file in his hand, like a magician preparing his biggest trick. He smirked at me, and that alone sent a cold chill down my spine. Your Honor, Richard began with dramatic flair, yesterday's testimony revealed coercion, but that's hardly the end of the story. Today, we present hard evidence. He laid the file on the table. The sound of the folder snapping open was like a gunshot. Inside were forged documents, bank statements showing massive transfers into an account under my name. The judge leaned forward, brows raised. Mr. David, do you have an explanation for these? My stomach flipped. Those weren't real, but to an untrained eye, they looked legitimate. Anna glanced at Emily with crocodile tears welling in her eyes. I never wanted to believe it, she whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. But this proves it. Emily covered her mouth, torn between shock and disbelief. I forced myself to breathe. Panic wouldn't save me now. I scanned the papers from my desk and noticed something. The account number. It didn't match any of mine. Too many digits. It was subtle, but to anyone in finance, it was sloppy work. I looked up,
calm spreading through me like steel. "Your Honor," I said, "these documents are fraudulent, and I can prove it." Richard laughed. "Prove it? Are you an expert witness now?" I didn't answer him. Instead, I addressed the judge. "If the court allows, I'll call for a forensic accountant to analyze these statements. It won't take more than a day to confirm their origin." The judge considered this, then nodded slowly. "Very well. The documents will be held under review. Mr. Richard, if these turn out to be falsified, your credibility will be in question." That one sentence turned Richard's smirk into stone. During the recess, Emily approached me. Her voice trembled, caught between love and fear. "Dad, I don't know what to believe. Mom says one thing, Richard shows evidence, and then you fight back. My whole world feels like it's collapsing." I wanted to hug her, but I knew every eye in the courtroom was watching. Instead, I looked her in the eye. "Emily, you've known me your whole life. Ask yourself, have I ever lied to you?" She blinked, searching her memories. Her lips quivered, but she said nothing. Still, I saw the hesitation, the crack widening in Anna's carefully crafted wall of lies. That afternoon, Richard played his next card. He called Anna to the stand. Anna's performance was flawless, at least to most people. She spoke with trembling hands, describing late nights when I came home exhausted, hinting that maybe I wasn't as devoted, maybe I had secrets. She painted herself as the victim, abandoned, deceived, betrayed. Her words sliced through the room. Even I felt their sting. But something was off. As Anna continued, tears streaming down her face, I know instead of sympathy, there was doubt flickering in her eyes. She wasn't buying all of it. She'd seen her mother's manipulations up close for years, the emotional guilt trips, the little lies.
And now, under oath, Anna was overplaying her hand. When my turn came to cross-examine, I didn't attack her. That would have been expected. Instead, I spoke softly, almost mournfully. "Anna, we were married 25 years. Do you remember our first apartment? How we slept on the floor the first night because we couldn't afford a bed?" Her jaw tightened. "What does that have to do with this?" "Everything," I said, "because back then we had nothing, and we built everything together. And now you sit here pretending I would throw all that away? For what? For greed? For selfishness? That's not who I am, and deep down you know it." For the first time, Anna's facade cracked. She looked away. The courtroom murmured, but Richard wasn't done. "Your Honor," he interjected, "emotional appeals don't change the facts, and the fact is, this man is guilty." The judge silenced him, but the damage was done. As the day ended, I walked out of the courtroom, feeling the weight of a war that seemed endless. Yet I also sensed something shifting. Emily didn't walk beside Anna. She lingered near me, conflicted but no longer convinced of my guilt. That night, alone in my apartment, I stared at the city lights. Richard and Anna thought they had me cornered, but tomorrow the forensic report would arrive, and with it, a chance to turn the entire case upside down. I whispered to myself, "One more day, David. One more day, and the truth will bleed through." The next morning, the courtroom buzzed like a beehive. Word had spread. Today, the forensic report would be presented. This wasn't just another piece of evidence. This was the knife that could cut through Richard's carefully woven net of lies. Richard strutted in with Anna at his side, still putting on his air of confidence, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Anna kept dabbing her eyes with a tissue, rehearsing her role as the grieving, betrayed wife. Emily entered more quietly than usual. She avoided Anna's gaze and sat in the back, her hands gripping the edge of the bench. I noticed her glance at me, just briefly, but there was something different, a softness, a question. The judge entered, and the clerk announced the next order of business, presentation of the forensic accountant's findings. A middle-aged woman with glasses and a precise tone took the stand. She carried a thick file and a laptop, projecting documents on the courtroom screen. These bank statements submitted by the defense, she began, were analyzed line by line. It is my professional opinion that they are fabricated. A collective gasp spread across the courtroom. Richard shot up from his chair. "Objection! This is outrageous!" The judge cut him off sharply. "Sit down, Mr. Richard." The accountant continued, pointing to inconsistencies. Wrong account numbers, incorrect routing codes, fonts that didn't match real bank templates, even digital signatures that were copied and pasted from unrelated documents. Simply put, she concluded, these are counterfeits, not legitimate financial records. I watched Richard's face as the truth landed. His jaw tightened, and the sweat beading on his temple betrayed him. Anna's lips parted in disbelief, but I wasn't sure if she was shocked at being caught or angry at Richard for failing her. The judge's voice was cold steel. "Mr. Richard, you presented falsified evidence in this court. Do you have any explanation?" Richard opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at Anna, then back at the judge. His bravado was crumbling in front of everyone. The silence was heavier than any words. Emily stood up. Her voice, trembling but strong, pierced the silence. "Your Honor, I need to say something." The judge allowed it. Emily stepped forward, glancing between her mother and me. "My mom told me my dad was lying, that he was hiding money, betraying us. I wanted to believe her because she's my mom. But I also know my dad. He raised me. He never missed a birthday. He worked late nights to pay for my school. And now, seeing this, I realize he's been telling the truth all along." Her voice cracked, but she pushed on. "I don't know why my mom and Richard are doing this, but I can't keep pretending. My dad doesn't deserve this." Anna's face drained of color. "Emily, no, you don't understand. I did this for us, for—" But Emily pulled back. For the first time, she looked at her mother not with love, but with disillusionment. "Mom, you're the one who doesn't understand. You wanted me to hate Dad, but all you did was show me how far you're willing to go to destroy him." Her words echoed, each syllable cutting deeper than any lawyer's argument. The judge banged the gavel to restore order. "This court will not tolerate emotional manipulation any further. The evidence is clear. The forged documents are stricken from the record. First time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe fully." Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Flashes went off, microphones shoved forward. But in that chaos, the moment that mattered was Emily walking up to me. "Dad," she whispered, her eyes wet, "I'm sorry I doubted you." I hugged her, holding her as tightly as I dared. "You don't need to apologize, Emily. You needed to see it for yourself, and now you know." Behind us, Anna and Richard stood frozen, their empire of lies collapsing brick by brick. Richard barked something to his assistant, but his voice lacked conviction. Anna reached for Emily's arm, but Emily didn't move toward her. For the first time, Emily chose me. That night, back in my apartment, I sat with Emily. She asked questions, the kind that cut deeper than any courtroom interrogation. Why would Mom do this? Why would she want to hurt you, us? I didn't have all the answers, but I told her the truth. Sometimes people let greed, fear, or jealousy poison them. Sometimes they choose destruction over love. Emily nodded slowly. Her trust in me rebuilt, though the pain lingered. But one thing was certain. The war wasn't over. Richard was too proud, too dangerous to walk away quietly. And Anna, she still hadn't revealed the depths of her motives. Tomorrow would bring the final battle. The following week, the courtroom reconvened for the final ruling. Everyone sensed it was the endgame. The lies had been exposed, Emily had spoken her truth, and Richard's empire was crumbling. But I also knew men like Richard didn't go down quietly. When I entered the hall that morning, the tension was thick. Anna sat alone, her face pale, eyes rimmed red from sleepless nights. Richard was pacing like a caged animal, whispering furiously to his lawyer. Emily stayed by my side this time, her hand gripping mine, subtle but steady. The judge entered. Silence fell. After reviewing the evidence, the court finds that the financial records submitted by Mr. Richard were fraudulent. Custody rights are granted in favor of Mr. David. Furthermore, sanctions and criminal investigation into perjury and evidence tampering will proceed against both Richard and Mrs. Anna. The words rang like church bells in my ears. I'd won. Not just the case, but the truth. Emily squeezed my hand tighter. I could feel her relief. Finally, clarity, justice. But then Richard stood, eyes blazing, his voice dripping venom. This isn't justice. This is a farce. You think you can take everything from me? His voice grew louder, echoing through the courtroom. I built my career on winning. You're not going to ruin me with your petty tricks. The bailiff stepped forward, but Richard shoved his chair aside and jabbed a finger toward me. You think you've won, David? You think this ends here? I'll drag you down with me. Before he could finish, Anna stood abruptly, her voice breaking. Stop, Richard. Just stop. Everyone froze. Anna never raised her voice in public, never broke her carefully rehearsed mask. But now, raw desperation spilled out. You don't get it, do you? She said, her voice trembling. This wasn't just about money. It was about me, about being invisible. For years, I was just David's wife, his shadow. He had respect, stability, a family, and me, I felt like nothing. Then you came along, Richard, and you promised me power. You promised me I'd matter. Her confession cut through the room like glass shattering. Emily's eyes widened, her face crumpling. Mom, is that why you tried to destroy Dad? Because you wanted to feel important? Anna's lip quivered. She looked at Emily, and for the first time, there was no performance, just a woman stripped bare. Yes, she whispered. I was tired of being second. I thought if I tore him down, I'd finally stand taller. The silence was suffocating. Then Emily, voice shaking but fierce, delivered the final blow. Mom, all you did was make yourself smaller. Dad didn't destroy you. You did. Richard snarled, slamming his fist on the table. Pathetic. You both disgust me. You wanted power, Anna, and you... He pointed at me, his face twisted with rage. You think you've beaten me? I still have friends in high places. This isn't over. The bailiffs finally moved in, gripping his arms. Richard thrashed like a man drowning, but it was useless. His voice cracked into a hoarse roar as they dragged him out. You'll regret this! You'll all regret this! The courtroom doors slammed behind him. Silence. Heavy. Unmoving. Anna sank into her chair, sobbing quietly, the weight of her choices crushing her at last. Emily looked at her mother one last time, grief and anger mixing on her face, then turned away. She leaned into me, whispering, Let's go home, Dad. 2 words, simple, but they healed wounds that months of fighting had left raw. Outside, the media frenzy exploded.
Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Microphones lunged forward. Mr. David, how does it feel to win? Do you believe justice was served? What about your wife's confession? I held Emily close and spoke firmly. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about truth and protecting what matters most. Then I guided Emily past the crowd, away from the chaos, into a quieter street where the air finally felt breathable. That night, sitting together on the couch, Emily rested her head on my shoulder. Dad, she murmured, I was so scared I'd lose you. You never will, I said softly. No matter how dark it gets, I'll always fight for you. Her eyes closed, a small smile breaking through. For the first time in months, she looked at peace. And me? I felt a quiet victory, not the loud triumph of courtrooms or headlines, but the kind that matters. The kind you carry in your chest. Anna's betrayal would scar, Richard's venom would echo, but in that moment, I had what truly mattered, my daughter's trust, her love, her choice to stand with me. The story ended not with fireworks, not with endless speeches, but with a single, powerful truth. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply surviving, standing tall, and walking away with the people who still believe in you. And that night, as I closed my eyes, I knew, whatever battles lay ahead, Emily and I would face them together. If this story moved you, don't just scroll. Subscribe for more true, hard-hitting narratives. Drop a comment with the moment that hit you hardest, and share this with someone fighting their own storm. Your support keeps these stories alive, and you never know who needs to hear it tonight.